All right, change of pace, heading across to the United States, and former US President Donald Trump, is he heading to jail? A US judge says he's walking a fine line. Joining me live is Axios political reporter Erin Doherty. Erin, thanks for joining us on the program. What do you think? Is Donald Trump going to end up behind bars?
It seems unlikely at this point, but as you mentioned, the judge in the case did kind of offer a very strong warning against former President Trump, saying that if he continues to take to his social media accounts to attack people in his case, such as witnesses, and in violation of the gag order that he's under, the threat of jail is very real. It seems like former President Trump has sort of tampered down on his social media posts in direct connection to the trial this week after he has had two different hearings to consider whether he has had violations of the gag order. But of course, as you mentioned, the judge continues to hold the threat of jail in front of him.
Definitely. And of course, those fines this week as well. How do you see that court case going? It's certainly getting plenty of headlines, not only in the United States, but all around the world.
Yeah, it sort of is become the 2024 presidential campaign at this point. Obviously, former President Trump is the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, and this court case has taken away from the campaign trail. He's required to be in court 4 days a week, with the exception of Wednesday, and so it sort of has become all-consuming, both for the Trump campaign and people tracking what the former president is up to. On Friday, Hope Hicks, who was a former top aide to the president, testified and sort of outlined the final days of the 2016 presidential campaign and what happened when an Access Hollywood tape became public, which revealed audio of former President Trump boasting about groping women. So the case has sort of took a very sharp turn on Friday and really heated up. And I expect that it's going to continue to get, continue to share insight into the final days of the 2016 presidential campaign going forward, as we're expected to hear from other key witnesses.
Every time we've heard about a court case or seen Donald Trump in court, it's almost given him a sugar hit on the road to November. The United States of America, in many places, is a very conservative country. Do you think some of these revelations will start to take their toll on him?
So that's the big question. We saw during the Republican primary that his numerous court cases had no impact on his Republican base. If anything, they strengthened his support. But the big question going forward to November is whether he is able to turn those same general election voters on his side if they have concerns about his court cases. There have been some warning signs in early primary states. Obviously, former President Trump cruised to victory in the Republican primary, but he still drew about a double-digit margins in states with people not voting for former President Trump, even after all of the other candidates dropped out. And so the big question is that a vulnerability for former President Trump going into November? And will these court cases, depending on how they shake out, hold him back with a general election base?
Moving away from Donald Trump and the courtrooms and looking at university and college campuses across the United States, a real worrying story with these protests, and they continue to grow.
Exactly. We've seen hundreds of people get arrested on college campuses this week in connection to protests and demonstrations over the war between Israel and Hamas. We've seen it sort of reach a fever pitch with universities in the United States calling in police and authorities to try to get them under control. President Biden weighed in earlier this week, and he sort of reaffirmed that students and Americans have the right to peaceful protest, but he condemned what he saw as sort of the chaos that we've seen on these college campuses with some students, taking over buildings. President Biden forcefully condemned that this week. I believe that this will be a story that continues possibly through November, depending on, how the war continues. And it's going to be both a political story and also a story that universities will be continuing to grapple with.
Absolutely. It's a huge story. And just on the economic situation, because obviously this is pivotal for Joe Biden and Donald Trump, but the Fed, and they came out quite strongly and said, look, we're not going to raise interest rates because there was a little bit of pressure, these stubborn inflation numbers.
Right. So the Fed held interest rates steady on Wednesday. They said this is for the sixth time, and they said that there was a lack of further progress on cooling inflation. Again, the it seems like everything is intersecting with the presidential election. This could be a key issue for President Biden looking ahead to November as well, considering, economy is one of the top issues for voters. And so if President Biden is able to if the economy is able to improve ahead of November, that's likely going to help him at the polls with voters.
Yes, absolutely. Erin, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.